15 years have swirled by, and the worst of the prophecies have been fulfilled. The United States and the world are locked deep in environmental crisis. The atmosphere, the earth, and the seas are perilously polluted. For the first time in human history, the total extinction of man is possible, even likely. It didn't happen all at once. The years whirl away and men fail to act. And when it was too late, the disasters began. What follows is a fictionalized news special program in the year 1985. Television and radio communications are still intact. The president has just spoken to the nation. Our dramatized news program begins immediately after he is finished. The things we will describe have not actually happened, but they could.
The President has just asked for the complete support of the American people in this time of crisis. Now, by his order, all radio and television networks will stay on the air 24 hours a day to relay official instructions and developments, as we have since the beginning of the Los Angeles smog disaster 2 days ago. Now, to summarize the President's speech, undoubtedly the grimmest in American history. We are in the middle of a national catastrophe. For a quarter century, the President said, we have talked about pollution and population and the dying environment. We talked, but we didn't do nearly enough. And now it's as if nature and the ghost of neglect have conspired to take their revenge all at once. Now, as the President phrased it, the most immediate danger to life is the air around us. It has become increasingly toxic in recent months and has already killed thousands of Americans and sickened millions of others. In Los Angeles, the death toll is mounting rapidly.
The smog that crept in more than 48 hours ago still hangs over the Los Angeles basin, and the total number of victims is soaring. At last count, more than 11,000 people had died because of the toxic fumes of the 2-day temperature inversion. And many times that number are crowded into every hospital and medical facility in the area. Los Angeles is nature's perfect trap for smog, and that smog in turn has now trapped more than 3 million human beings. No one knows how many people are dead in their homes in the populous San Fernando Valley. Many citizens panicked for the death around them, crammed into their cars and rushed onto the freeways to flee the city. The highways are now jammed and the people in the basin cannot escape. There is no place for them to go and not enough time. City, state, and military officials are struggling to restore order in Los Angeles, but many privately admit the battle may already be lost. But no matter what they try, it will be far too little and much too late. This is George Putnam in Los Angeles.
As the President indicated earlier, more than 130 cities report toxic smog conditions, but nowhere else are they anything like those we just heard George Putnam describe in Los Angeles. Now, the major source of air pollution in that city is, of course, the automobile, as it is in most major American cities. Industries also contribute a large share, and up until recent weeks, the smokestacks were polluting full blast. Absentee rates in the American workforce have risen sharply in recent days during this period of particularly heavy air pollution. Production is slowly coming to a halt, and soon skies distorted with columns of smoke may become only a murky memory. As people in their cars stay home, as industries curtail output, some smog may clear up. And so there's a good chance that the wave of air pollution deaths and illnesses that inundated the country may be receding. Meanwhile, millions of people who show no signs of physical illness are suffering a strange lassitude. Public health officials tell us that this too is caused by the bad air surrounding us. But whatever the cause, death, illness, or lassitude, vital services in many cities are seriously crippled or non-existent, among them police, fire, and garbage collection. Now, the National Guard units, even though they too are understaffed, are replacing policemen and firemen in some areas. But the garbage crisis may continue for some time. There simply aren't enough people to do the work. 47 cities now have some 2 weeks of uncollected garbage on the streets, and the threat of a major epidemic is growing. Now, generally speaking, water plants in America are automated and require small staffs, and so most of them are still in operation. With the exception of Chicago, there is no city in the nation without water tonight, although quality in many areas is falling off rapidly. Most American cities, except those in the Northeast, have electricity. Now again, nature has conspired to bring us down. The current East Coast heat wave coaxed millions of air conditioners into action and triggered the blackout now affecting the area from Boston to New York. But despite the blackout, we are still in direct communications with New York.
Some lights burn in this city tonight, but they're few. They stand out like lighthouse beacons, beckoning the stranded and the confused traveler to safety and security. Only vital services remain in operation. Auxiliary power units sustain hospitals, police, and fire stations are minimally lit. In the eerie darkness of this giant city, National Guardsmen called up 3 days ago when the governor declared martial law patrolled the streets guarding against looting. Small bands of hungry scavengers have been ransacking isolated stores and homes off and on for about a week now. In more secure sections, the mayor has ordered food stores and warehouses to remain open, but the stocks are nearly depleted. And with transportation services almost inoperative, little food is coming into this city. So far, there have been no cases of starvation deaths reported, but many people are definitely hungry. With most businesses shut down, many streets are deserted except for the occasional patrols. Hundreds of thousands of people who were trapped in Manhattan when essential transportation first collapsed have since found other ways to leave the city. Many suburbanites who work in New York finally walk the 20 or 30 or more miles home. And hotels which were jammed 2 days ago are now empty, except for those travelers from distant cities stranded here when the airports closed down. Meanwhile, with practically no automobile traffic and factories in the area closed down, the air over this city is clearer tonight than it has been for more than a decade. And with no smog tonight, no lights on, one can actually see the stars twinkling. A rare sight for New Yorkers. This is Bill Jorgensen in New York.
This is a dramatization of a news program in the year 1985. The events described here are not actually occurring at this time.
I'm just getting some late word regarding the president. He has decided to remain here in Washington during the current crisis, despite requests from Congress that he and his family be evacuated for reasons of safety. Now, this city, of course, also has its share of smog, and it's a clear threat to health, but the president insists he will stay here at the seat of government. A joint session of the Congress yesterday gave him what amounts to a blank check for handling the crisis, and he now has the most extraordinary powers any American leader has ever wielded. Among the first things the president has ordered, as he explained tonight, is the immediate rationing of food supplies. They are dangerously low, dwindling fast, and some may be contaminated. Now, obviously, with the present worldwide food crisis, we are unable to import foodstuffs, and to compound the situation, our domestic output is down this year. The great western drought of last spring and the increasing toxicity of irrigation waters combined to cut food production through much of the country last fall to less than half the usual output. And we continue this year to be hurt most in those areas where we once placed our heaviest reliance. Glenn Hansen reports.
This is America's great breadbasket, the Midwest. But we're alarmed out here, alarmed at the rate our farms and croplands are being abandoned. No one living in this fertile plain and watching these lands endlessly produce their bounty ever believed it could happen. It's as simple as that. For 100 years, the great expanse of land from the Mississippi to the Rockies, from Texas to Montana, poured forth a superabundance of wheat, corn, and cattle to feed a nation in the world. It was an article of faith here that anything that increased the yield was good. And it wasn't a purely selfish point of view. After all, we had people to feed, and we took our responsibilities seriously. The surprising thing now is how long it took us to see what was happening. Oh, we see it now, of course. The poisons we spread everywhere killed the insects just as they were supposed to do. But then they killed the fish, and they killed the wildlife, and then they killed the land. Pick up a handful of dirt anywhere, from Ohio to Colorado, and you'll find it full of pesticides. Scoop up a cupful of water from any lake, river, or stream from the Alleghenies to the Rockies, and you'll find these same poisons. They won't last forever, of course. The chemicals in the soil and the water will break down, disappear, and then the land will live again. It will happen in a few decades, 3 or 4 or even 5. But in the meantime, what do we eat? This is Glenn Hansen in what was once the great food producer, the Midwest.
And so along with everything else, we suffer the curse of the pesticides. We didn't embrace that evil innocently. As early as 20 years ago, we were told of the dangers in pesticides. And yet even with those warnings, we seemed unable to escape our fate. Metromedia Science editor Ken Gilmore explains.
Even back in the mid-1960s, they called them the Dirty Seven, the chlorinated hydrocarbons, of which DDT was the best known. At one time, they had been of tremendous benefit to mankind. In India alone, malaria was killing 750,000 people a year. After DDT, the death toll dropped to 1,500 for a while, and the powerful new pesticide saved millions of dollars worth of crops, crucial in a food-hungry world. Then problems began to develop. The trouble was that the chlorinated hydrocarbons were persistent. They didn't break down quickly into harmless chemicals. Years after they were sprinkled or dusted or sprayed into the atmosphere, they were still active and deadly. Runoff water washed them off the land and into the rivers and streams, and eventually into the oceans, where year after year they continued to accumulate. In the water, a curious process called biological magnification took place. The pesticides were absorbed in small quantities by algae, single-celled plants. Bacteria and minute aquatic animals ate the algae and their DDT. Small fish ate the minute animals, and larger fish ate them. And they were eaten in turn by still larger fish. As early as 1969, the FDA seized tons of coho salmon because their DDT content made them unfit for food. But the birds didn't know that. The bald eagle and the brown pelican, the osprey in Rhode Island, and the herring gull on Lake Michigan ate fish and were wiped out. The poisons spread over the globe. Penguins in the Antarctic were found to have DDT in their tissues too. By 1969, a Swedish toxicologist had examined hundreds of nursing mothers and found that the DDT content of their milk was more than twice the amount allowed in cow's milk. 3 states outlawed the chemical, and the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare announced that DDT would be banned in the entire country except for essential uses. That was the out the DDT forces needed. Manufacturers took a lesson from the cigarette battle a decade earlier. They continued to claim in the face of rising evidence that there was no proof that DDT was doing anybody any harm. And they and the agricultural interests continued to find more and more essential uses. But in the long run, it didn't do any good. More and more strains of insects became resistant to one insecticide after another, and the poisons killed natural predators. Soon, resistant strains of insects were destroying the food crops even more hungrily than they had been before. But by that time, the land was poisoned, and the sea, and the whole earth. And in yet another way, man's contempt for his environment had led to the ultimate payoff. This is Ken Gilmore reporting.
This is a dramatization of a news program in the year 1985. The events described here are not actually occurring at this time.